Yo, what is up guys, Inferno Trees here. Welcome to a brand new video. Today is the video that it's taken me ages to do, honestly, and also because I haven't really been concentrating, but it's the Sword and Shield review. Yeah, I've been working on this for a while. It's taken a long time, and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. Yeah, let's just get right into it, honestly. Alright, so let's start off this review by talking about the main story of the game. So, right off the bat, the pacing of the game was terrible. The game starts off quite slow. Not as slow as Sun and Moon, but I think it was, kind of the right pace. The time you get to the first gym, it's a long time, but that's common for recent Pokemon games, so it's fine. However, after this, you just go from gym to gym getting badges until you reach the Pokemon League. Also, Sword and Shield is by far the most linear Pokemon game I have ever played. In terms of the main Galar region, whenever you get to a new town, there is always a roadblock stopping you from getting to the next route, and most towns just have a single exit that takes you to the next route. One of the biggest problems with this is that I was unable to even step into the next route until some story condition was met. And the amount of times this happened was just annoying, and I felt like I was just following a story rather than playing a game. Let's compare this to another Pokemon game, Jubilife City from Diamond, Pearl and Platinum. When you reach Jubilife City, before you have any gym badges, you can exit to the east where you continue with the story with Route 203 and reach the first gym. You can also exit to the north and explore Route 204 where you can fight some trainers, enter a cave which you cannot pass without Rock Smash. Or you can go to the right and reach Route 208 which you cannot pass without the HM Surf, but you can also get the Old Rod there and do some fishing. See how the player has options to explore, and while they don't progress through the story, they still have something to do and don't feel limited. Luckily, the wild area saves this from being completely unbearable, but in reality it is just a giant route that connects 3 cities in terms of the main story. The characters in Sword and Shield are definitely a step up from previous games. With the trailers showing off all these rivals that we would have throughout the game, I was worried that it was going to be like X and Y, and all the characters would be bland and forgettable. Luckily, these characters were pulled off quite well. Despite this, I think the villain of this game was definitely the weakest villain we've had so far. A lot of this comes down to the fact that Rose's evil plan was only talked about after the 8th gym. Before this, we had no idea about anything that was going on in the background, because whenever there was an issue, Leon would take control of the situation instead of the player. While this is actually something far more realistic and is actually good to see the champion do something for once, the player not being involved in any of the conflict clashes with one of the main parts of this story. Many people have compared the story of Sword and Shield to Black and White. Now, any of you who know about Pokemon Black and White must know that these games are well known for having the best story in any Pokemon game to date. So the fact that the stories are similar must mean they're good, right? Well, Sword and Shield follows a similar pattern in Black and White's story, by setting up 2 heroes who are involved in some kind of prophecy. In Black and White, the player and N represent either truth or ideals, while in Sword and Shield, you and Hop will be representing the sword and the shield. Black and White pulls this off well, as you are involved in what's going on around the region, while in Sword and Shield, you and Hop, while you're supposed to be the heroes of the game, are not involved and Leon does everything. This is why Sword and Shield's reveal of Rose planning to destroy the region doesn't work, and why it feels like there was no build up to the battle against Rose and Eternatus. Having a raid battle at the end was a good idea and it was pulled off well. They were able to incorporate the raid battle mechanic into what was actually happening at the time and it didn't feel forced. The levels at the gym leaders at the end of the game was way too low, and the jump to Leon was way too big. How am I supposed to believe that Raihan is supposed to be Leon's rival when his Pokemon are significantly lower leveled and he doesn't even use 6 Pokemon? Also, I want to put it out there that near the end of the game, everyone I talked to was hyping up Raihan, and he ended up being the easiest gym leader that I fought in any Pokemon game, so I don't know what the point of that was. Graphics is probably the most disappointing part about Sword and Shield in my opinion. Let me start with what the games did well though. The towns and cities in Galar do look great. Walking into each city for the first time with all the cinematic shots is a nice touch and really shows off how good they look. Same goes for some other locations such as the Galar Mine and the Glimwood Tangle. Additionally, the Pokemon look great as they always have, thanks to the future-proof models carried over from X and Y, and the new textures they applied really make the Pokemon look great. Despite this, I think the animations in this game are quite lacking. especially when all the NPCs walk around like robots and models just rotate on the spot. In terms of attack animation, it's basically the same stuff from the 3DS. There were no new animations that really blew me away, apart from Cinderace's Pyro Ball, which is probably the best looking attack in any Pokemon game, and I wish more attacks would take this idea and having more personalized animation for each Pokemon. Overall, I was extremely disappointed with how the rest of the game looked. Some of the routes just looked like the same thing over again, and honestly at the times I thought the routes looked like they were ripped straight out of Sun and Moon. Despite this, the routes in Sun and Moon were longer than the routes in Sword and Shield, and it honestly feels like some of them were not thought out and just put there because they needed to have something between the cities. In the indoor areas, I was disappointed with how everything appeared so big on the outside, but on the inside of the buildings the entire building would be blocked off, only giving access to one room. Also, all the houses were the same thing over and over, which is pretty disappointing considering how Let's Go had some really interesting indoor areas. And the indoor battle backgrounds were really bad. I mean, it was just a plain white background. Even Let's Go had better indoor battle backgrounds than this, and even in the gym challenge areas, the battle background would just be an empty void with the color of the gym you were in. While the post-game isn't amazing, it's definitely better than the non-existent post-game from Pokemon X and Y. The post-game is basically like the Delta episode from Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, an extension of the game from the main story. The post-game story is actually far more interesting plot-wise than the plot of the main story. A story about a royal family covering up a secret about the legendaries was actually the kind of story I was expecting in the main game, and I hope this will be explored further in a Sword and Shield remastered version. The gameplay of the post-game was really lacking. All you did was a series of raid battles, and it honestly feels like they were just put in there so the player would have something to do instead of just sitting through all this dialogue. Overall, the post-game wasn't the best, but at least there was a post-game. The wild area is probably the best thing about Pokemon Sword and Shield. For years we have dreamed of an open world Pokemon experience, and while the wild area is far from this is the closest we have ever come to having that. There's heaps of stuff to do, and there are many Pokemon to catch. The wild area is where you're going to spend all your time after you beat the game, except for a few other areas, because there really isn't anything else to do. Raid battles are fun to do, and if you're into shiny hunting or competitive breeding, you're going to enjoy your time here. However, some of the raid battle stuff does get pretty repetitive, so if you're not really into, the breeding and the shiny hunting kind of aspect to try and get, perfect Pokemon, you might get bored of this. The new mechanic of this game was Dynamaxing, also Gigantamaxing, but they're basically the same thing. First off, I think it's a good thing that Dynamaxing was limited to the gym battles and other specific fights, because it would obviously be weird having giant Pokemon appear in some random trainer battle on Route 3. Unlike Mega Evolutions and Z-moves, Dynamaxing wouldn't work if it was available in every single battle. However, I wasn't really a big fan of Dynamaxing, and it's definitely inferior to Mega Evolution and Z-moves. While Mega Evolution provided a brand new form for Pokemon, and Z-moves acted as an extremely powered up type gem that could be activated at any time, Dynamaxing feels like it's trying to achieve both of these at the same time by changing the Pokemon and powering up their moves. However, it fails to achieve the new form effect, as all it does is increase the size of the Pokemon. While Gigantamaxing does fix this, it does not make the Pokemon stand out from its regular Gigantamax form, as often the only difference is the changing of a single attack, and sometimes the Gigantamax Pokemon aren't even as good as their Dynamax counterparts, for example Dreadnought and Corviknight. The music in Sword and Shield didn't blow me away, but it was still very good, as to be expected by a Pokemon game. None of the city themes caught my attention, but some of the battle themes I thought were amazing. Some of these include Marnie's theme, Bede's theme, and the Gym Leader theme. While talking about the designs of the new Pokemon is subjective, I just wanted to share my opinions on the new Pokemon. Overall, I think they did a great job. Pretty much all of the new Pokemon fit right in, and while the starters are a little disappointing to me, I still think they did a great job in designing the new Pokemon, and I'm definitely happy they made new forms for Pokemon that aren't from Gen 1. With all the new competitive and quality of life changes that Game Freak made to the game, I was expecting to finally have a good online system in a Pokemon game, and I know many others were expecting this as well. I mean seriously, we're on the Switch now, surely they can make a decent online system. Unfortunately, the online in this game is even worse than the Festival Plaza from Sun and Moon. Just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, it got far worse. The Wycom sounds like a decent idea on paper, but in practice it is barely functional and shows how far behind Game Freak is compared to other game companies for online play. I don't understand why it's so hard to just allow me to access my friend list and invite them to trade or battle. Inputting link codes doesn't even work half the time, and sometimes both people are waiting 10 minutes to connect despite having the same link code. I hope Game Freak listens to the many suggestions that their fans have given them, hopefully, because usually, they don't listen to us at all, and improve the online service, because right now it is an absolute joke. And I just want to touch on the Dex cut. I've mentioned it before, and you guys know I'm definitely not a fan of the Dex cut at all. And honestly, it's really disappointing because all the things they promised us with the Dex cut, the increased graphics, competitive balance, and the improved animations, all of them are not present in the game. Dynamaxing is one of the most broken mechanics we've ever seen in ages, and I know you can make the argument, it's fine in doubles, and Game Freak only balanced for doubles, but what kind of argument is that? You're telling me that it's okay for Game Freak to basically ignore half of the competitive community? And do you think removing 400 Pokemon is a good way to balance a game? No, it's not. It just shows that they're incompetent and they can't balance the game without getting rid of 400 Pokemon. But overall, I've talked about this before, I didn't really want to touch on it in this video, but it definitely does bring the game down a fair bit in my overall opinion on it. Alright guys, so that is it for the video. Overall, in conclusion, Sword and Shield for me is a lot like X and Y. I feel like it has a lot of potential to be a very good game, but it was clearly rushed, and honestly I think that if we got like a third version, or now they do two versions, like a Sword and Shield 2 or whatever, Ultra Sword and Shield, whatever they choose to, I honestly think Sword and Shield really needs something like that, because it was rushed. There was clearly not enough time put into it, that's seen from the Dex cuts, and by some of the textures in the wild area, it just does not look like a Switch game, but overall, it's not too bad. I mean, all Pokemon games are overall good. Even X and Y is a good game to me. It's just not the best Pokemon game, and I feel like it could have been better. I know I've been bringing up X and Y a lot, but that's just because X and Y and Sword of Shield are just such similar games in my opinion, with the wasted potential and all that. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a while to make, but yeah, thank you guys so much. I'll see you all in the next video.